Security has not approved RSYNC, by user avidpearl. Not me, but a friend. They were working as a sysadmin and the company needed a tool to synchronize files across servers. They suggested RSYNC because it was installed on their servers by default and RSYNC a fast, versatile, remote, and local, file copying tool. They were informed that RSYNC was not acceptable because security had not approved that tool. Confused face. They had to write their own tool. My friend was mostly familiar with Perl, so that's the language they used, and frankly, it's perfect for something like this. Being aware that this tool could be used in many contexts and it needed to be easy to learn, they implemented all the command line arguments that RSYNC accepted. When they were done, they delivered a powerful, fast, feature-complete tool to handle synchronizing files across servers. Security approved the new tool. It shelled out to RSYNC. Why is no one helping me, but I won't answer when IT emails me, by user another_basic_NPC. I used to work in a Tier 1 role, so boots on the ground, and recently got into a Tier 2 role, yay, so I figured I'd start sharing some stories with the nice people I worked with lol. I worked at an office with anywhere from a co-op to a partner or more, so we had some higher-ups always kicking around. One partner, however, was always a complete wet blanket anytime you tried to work with him. There was always the two types, the ones that would chat you up a bit while you helped, and then ones demanding it fixed and say nothing. He was the latter, sadly. One day, he reached out saying he wanted a headset set up and delivered to him to my boss, so naturally it comes to me. As he was always in calls, and I also love having an email as a backup, I emailed him that morning. I advised him I had a headset ready, and if he could pop over when he was free, I would be happy to help with it. No response. Day 2, same thing, emailed the same text and got no reply. On day 3, however, he got mad, and called my manager demanding to know why no one helped. And finally, he came over to see me, freaking out about a headset, and that IT wasn't even trying to help him. I told him I've tried contacting him multiple times, and every time I walk by the office he's in a call with the door shut. Right away he demands to see where I contacted him, so we pull up the emails, the date/time, and I show both attempts with no answer, which was priceless. Sure enough, we made a time, took the 2 minutes to plug it in and test it, and I went on my way. No apologies or anything naturally, but he never tried that again when I emailed him in the future. So a happy story, I suppose? Printer maintenance, check oil levels, by user saint_13. IT for a larger car retailer here. Yesterday, we had a ticket coming in from our parts department. User claimed her printer shows check oil levels on the display. Confused as we were, we went out to investigate, as her office is just a few minutes away. The display indeed showed check oil levels. Turns out, a print job called check oil levels on vehicle XXX failed and caused that error on the display. Tried to explain that to her and that her printer did not need to be checked for oil levels. She insisted that we still check, though. Clicked around a bit in its menu and then told her all oil levels were in fact okay. We then changed the wheels, which I hope is the correct English term, because it was having trouble retracting paper. Told the user and went back to work. She called again today, asking if oil levels are still fine. She printed a lot yesterday evening. We told her everything is fine, but the printer needs a new pair of brake pads. She then ran off and tried to check our parts systems for the correct brake pads. Smells like the sea, by user MDC61899089. I use sand and lightning to perform tricks for a living. Once a user came to me with his head low. You could see his spirit was broken, his eyes betrayed his polite smile. With him came the clear smell of ocean, and an iPhone in his hand. I was at the beach and forgot my phone was in my pocket, he says to me without looking me in the eye. Clearly repentant for such an action, I choose not to give him any grief about the issue. But I haven't backed up the phone, and all my granddaughter's pictures are on here. The user explains some personal matters that roughly equate to his family went back to the Philippines and he won't see her again for at least a year. I offer no promise of recovery, rather indicating he should expect no miracles. Upon receiving the device I notice water inside of the screen assembly. The smell of seawater and sunscreen has filled the entire room. With no sense of hope, I decide to open the device and see how bad the damage to the logic board is. The screen comes off with a squish, and the reality of the situation hits me. The entire internal assembly has white salt deposits, and the smell dramatically increases in strength. Quickly the battery is disconnected, and I get to work freeing the board from its tomb. Once free, it's blown off with compressed air. It's at this point that my coworkers become curious as to the source of the stench. The general consensus was derision. After letting the board sit on my desk for the afternoon, a radically stupid idea came to me. I grabbed my coworker's Tupperware container from his desk, and like lemmings they followed me to the kitchen. Gently I placed the board in the container, then filled it a third of the way with isopropyl alcohol. On the lid I placed a sticky note that read "Shake me, please," and gave it a little shake myself. I then let it sit on the counter for the remainder of the week, shaking it myself every time I went in there and seeing others do the same. It was somewhat of a game to the non-IT staff, being amused at the ridiculous request before them. After drying the board on my desk, I placed it in a spare phone and held my breath as I waited for it to power on. It fired right up, and I copied the contents to a disk for the ecstatic user. A good tale was reward enough for me, however the user decided that confectionaries would work better. They were definitely right about that. The Drowned Server, by Userazumni. A few employers, and about 9 years ago I worked as a customer support engineer for a smallish software development company in Oslo that creates a specialized and quite niche software package that is the industry standard in its field. Among our clients you would find most international newspapers, all of the international news agencies, publishing houses, and so on and so forth. End users didn't have our contact details, as they were served by local resellers who served as both salespeople and integrators. As a result, we were essentially Tier 2 and 3 support. I had direct access to all of our development team, and worked closely with them on bug fix and testing. But I digress. I'd been working a particularly challenging ticket for a few weeks. The customer would be having intermittent issues accessing our software. We turned on increasing levels of logging, but found nothing that even came close to indicating what the issue was. I'd been talking to the lead developer for this product on a daily basis, and we just couldn't get to grips with it. He created a new build of the core software, which would log everything. Anything that happens on the server is logged, no matter how big or small. This has two side effects: server utilization is about doubled, and the log files grow big very quickly. He'd run it on his test server, and got gigabytes worth of log files, raw text, within hours. The client, located in New York, declared a service window between 1100 and 2000 on a Friday, local time, meaning 1800 my time, well after my normal working hours. But hey, I got double OT and overtime food, so I was relatively happy. At any rate, we install the new build, and wait for the log files to start building. The log files generally looked fine, until I finally found a line stating, "Error, unable to access server Bunis 725. I'm in hour 3 of a conference call with the customer. They are stressed out, I am worn out, and well, we're all tired." I point this out to them as follows. Me, what's that server? I haven't seen that referred to before. Customer, oh, that one? It doesn't exist anymore. Sandy killed it. Me, Sandy? As in Hurricane Sandy? Customer, yup. That entire data center died when it flooded. If memory serves, that particular server was at the bottom of the rack, and actually drowned. Me, well. The system seems to be trying to access it. Let's have another look at the configuration, why don't we? Sure enough, 5 to 10 minutes later, we find that Bunis 725 was still set up as a backup/overflow server when their main server was overloaded. Once we removed that, their problems were resolved. As for the log files, the new build was only installed for about 3.5 hours, so it only took up about 100 gigabytes. They were heavy users of our software, to say the least. Author's note: I should add that the configuration they were using was one which was technically usable, but neither the intended use case for the feature they were using, nor one which was officially supported or documented. The failover feature was entirely rewritten in a later major release, to prevent this from happening again. TLDR: customer uses software in a way it wasn't intended to be used. When a server farm is killed by Hurricane Sandy, they don't reconfigure the software, and the vendor provides a separate log all build to identify the issue. Find all my tales from tech support here.